We're going to be talking next about Liz Truss, our Prime Minister. Remember her? She got on a plane last night after the Queen's funeral to New York, where she's attending, along with pretty much all the other world leaders, many of whom were at the funeral yesterday, at the UN General Assembly, where she'll be making a speech. Before she went, she did talk in advance about how she will be continuing aid to Ukraine. We'll be matching in 2023 the sort of sums that we've been spending in this year as well. But she also spoke about, meetings that she's going to have with Emmanuel Macron and indeed the American President Joe Biden. There was a bilateral talk planned in Downing Street ahead of the funeral when Joe Biden arrived in London ahead of the funeral, but it was agreed that that would actually be delayed, probably because, let's face it, something would leak out about it and then you'd have stories coming out on the day of the Queen's funeral. But let's talk about what's likely to happen with Greg Spence, and he's chairman of Republicans Overseas UK. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Morning. Greg, lovely to talk to you. I think we can safely say not a big fan of your current president, Joe Biden. We need to make that clear, not a neutral observer on this. Liz Truss, I mean, they're hoping to have these two meetings. She has already ruled out a trade deal with America in the next couple of years. But she said there are currently no negotiations with the US on trade. But there are still some big issues to discuss. In particular, a big issue with America. One will be Ukraine. But in terms of divisive issues, it's still the issue of Northern Ireland Protocol and our relationship with the EU, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right, Julia. And then you add on top of that the coming inflation and energy crisis, or cost of living crisis here in the UK, as it's called. So, I'm not expecting much to come out of this. President Biden has not historically been a great supporter or fan of the UK. And so in terms of the Northern Ireland and energy policy, I don't have a whole lot of hopes. I'm sorry, about trade policy specifically. Prime Minister Truss has has admitted that she doesn't expect any progress on trade. So maybe the focus will be on Northern Ireland. I don't expect much to come out of these meetings, but I do think it's a great opportunity for the Prime Minister to meet with the President of the United States and hopefully President Biden will learn a few things from the Prime Minister.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that bilateral meeting was cancelled, and I think probably because they do not see eye to eye particularly on the issue of Northern Ireland, and we know that the readouts of the American media on that would be rather different from what Downing Street would want coming out on the day of the Queen's funeral. But this thing, it is a very big issue. But I have to say, as a Brit, really rather object to Northern Ireland, to America poking their nose in, where it's none of its business. Given that that America would never sign a trade agreement with Canada and Mexico, which allow Canada and Mexico to decide the laws in your country and what who could arrive to live in America. I mean, a free trade agreement, yeah, that's what we wanted. That's what we thought we'd signed up to with the EU. But the Americans have a stake in the Good Friday Agreement, no doubt at all about that. But they don't have a stake in the Brexit deals and the Northern Ireland Protocol. Right. Frankly, it's none of your darn business. Why are you poking your nose in?
Yeah, I agree with that, Julia. And I think but this goes back to the Obama-Biden, legacy of really not being the super fans of the United Kingdom, first of all, but also they were really disappointed with Brexit. Obama was completely favoring Remain. He even came over here and talked about it and said that the UK would be in the back of the queue.
Well, that was President Obama.
Right, but still, it's still part of that Obama legacy, and Biden the administration is essentially run by Obama people. So, you have to understand that after Brexit happened, Biden and Obama were really disappointed, and it sort of made Obama look bad. In fact, so they're still a little bitter about that. That's why you see the real aggressive treatment by the New York Times about Queen Elizabeth in the last few weeks. That's a legacy from Brexit, where the administration and the left-leaning media, notably the New York Times, were very pro-Remain, and there's still that bitterness from that. So I don't expect a lot from President Biden. He's probably always going to there's pictures coming out of him standing with Jerry Adams and and the IRA terrorists.
I mean, yeah, I mean, let's face it, the Americans quite happily funded, you know, Sinn Féin, and let's face it, the IRA for many, many decades, didn't they?
So there is some baggage there, and Biden is very much on the team of the, you know, the IRA, and that, you know,
well, that's probably going too far at this point.
In the day, okay, so maybe not now, but you know, that picture wasn't that long ago. Of I believe it was Rita O'Hare and Jerry Adams standing, and he had his arm around Rita O'Hare. It's just a bad optic, and it doesn't really. But look, even at the beginning of this process, there was very little chance a trade deal would be completed with a Democratic administration, or specifically with Biden. Now, I think there's other things that they should be talking about. Energy policy is one of them, and Prime Minister Truss is very aggressive about, you know, reversing some of the climate supporting or climate issues.
That may be where the hope is, and of course very much on the same page when it comes to Ukraine as well. Thank you very much. Great to talk to you, Greg Swenson, Chair of Republicans Overseas UK.